Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to News Dose. So, per usual, I know there was a lot of people out last week shopping during Black Friday, as there's just all of these insane deals going across the industry. But interestingly enough, the best-selling console on Black Friday was actually a little bit of a surprise. Now, in retrospect, it actually makes a lot of sense, but we'll go over all of that here in just a little bit. Then we also have a big leak to talk about that fans are going absolutely crazy over right now, as it does sound like a big franchise is set to return and might be announced relatively soon. The question though is there actually any truth to this leak or not though? And we will go over all of that one here in just a little bit as well. To start the week off though, I do have some breaking news, and that is Valve still does not know how to count to 3. Yeah, no big surprise really, but it does appear that Valve still is not making Half-Life 3 even after all the success they had with Half-Life Alyx. I think for a lot of fans, they were hopeful that with Half-Life Alyx, that this would lead to more entries in the franchise more regularly and hopefully sooner rather than later. Can we finally get that follow-up to Half-Life 2 Episode 2? And well, unfortunately, it just doesn't sound like that's happening right now. Now, this is according to Valve News Network, which says, to get the big question out of the way, is there a true follow-up to Half-Life 2 Episode 2 in development in any capacity at Valve Software? The end of Half-Life Alyx, for those who haven't played it heavily, hints towards the continuation of Gordon Freeman's story. The issue is that no, at the current time, there isn't a major development team working on anything outside of a few pieces of software that are specifically tailored for hardware right now. So yeah, unfortunately for you Half-Life fans out there, according to Valve News Network, it's just not on the cards right now, and the reason for that is because reportedly Valve is actually putting a lot of resources instead into Steam Deck. The reason for that is because this device has been much more successful than previously anticipated, so they are trying to do everything they can to make that the best possible launch that they can. Now, I know this isn't necessarily something that a lot of you all are probably going to want to hear, especially after how good Half-Life Alyx was, but at the same time, the Steam Deck is a very exciting device. I know a lot of people are really excited about it, myself included, and hopefully that will turn out to be an amazing handheld, and after they release that, maybe, just maybe, Valve will go back and work on Half-Life yet again. Now, speaking of handhelds, a very high-quality game has now officially been announced for the Nintendo Switch, being 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim. Now, if you're not aware of what this game is, 13 Sentinels actually released back in 2019 exclusively for the PlayStation 4. It's like this side-scrolling RTS style of game, though the gameplay really does take a backseat to its story, but wow, is its story ever so phenomenal. Really, a lot of people will consider 13 Sentinels just to have one of the best stories in video games right now, so that is easily the main draw for this game, and it also does have a very appealing art style as well. The thing about this game, though, is that it is a little niche. This game is not going to go out and sell millions and millions of copies, and this is why it never really made much sense for this game to be exclusive to the PlayStation 4. It could sell so many more copies by being multi-platform, and especially considering how niche this title is, it would be best to release it on as many platforms as you possibly can. Now, I know that Vanillaware has done this type of stuff in the past. They made a big name for themselves over on the PlayStation Vita with selling games like Dragon's Crown and Odin Sphere, but even with 13 Sentinels, I just never really felt like the PlayStation 4 was the best fit. I actually feel like Vanillaware Games fits better on a handheld device because they did a phenomenal job with that over on the Vita, and a big part of that is because the art style that they go with. So I always felt that the Nintendo Switch would have been a perfect fit for a game like 13 Sentinels, and now after a couple years, it officially is coming to the Switch on April 12th. Now, we will still have to kind of see how this performs on the Switch, because there was some spots in 13 Sentinels that did struggle on the PlayStation 4, so we'll have to see how this translates to the Switch. They're going to have to optimize this one well, but if they do a good job with this, because of that art style, and because it has such a good story, this could end up being a must-buy game for the Nintendo Switch, again, on April 12th. Next up though, let's talk about Black Friday, as this is the day that really gets the shopping season kicked off for the holidays. All of these different retailers holds these insane discounts to bring shoppers into their store, and obviously this is a massive day for the game industry. This is, after all, the biggest shopping day of the entire year, so it's always interesting to see who had success. And well, interestingly enough, the best-selling console for Black Friday was the Xbox Series S. No, not the Xbox Series X. No, not the PlayStation 5, and not the Nintendo Switch, but instead, the $300 budget next-generation console, Xbox Series S. So yeah, Xbox had a big Black Friday this year, which we'll kind of get back to here in just a moment, but this is according to Adobe Digital Economy Index, which claims to have analyzed over 1 trillion visits to retail sites and surveyed over 1,000 customers about their buying habits over the Black Friday period last week. So I know right away there was some people that was kind of surprised about all of this because the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5 and Nintendo Switch are in such high demand. So a lot of people thought one of those would come away as the winner during Black Friday, but there's actually a little bit more happening here. And this is something that I have pointed out in the past several times. See, the thing is this is a rather unique year for game consoles because we are in a situation where the Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 5, and the Xbox Series has consistently sold out time and time again. So right now, it's not necessarily about who sells the most, but rather who can make the most. And in this situation, it does seem like the Xbox Series S was more widely available. That is a very important factor in a year where these consoles are constantly sold out. Of course, all of those consoles sold out yet again during Black Friday, but however, this doesn't make what's happening with the Xbox Series S any less impressive. In reality, this actually shows you that the Xbox Series S is a very popular option. The Xbox Series S, quite frankly, is a very viable option to jump into next-generation consoles. It sits at $300, which for a next-generation console, that is absolutely amazing. It can run 60 frames per second, no problem at all, which is a huge deal, and it's just an easy way to jump into next generation gaming. With it being $300, it obviously is going to be a very attractive option for a lot of people out there, especially parents. So it having success like this, I don't really find that to be a big surprise. And in fact, Phil Spencer in the past has said that he believes that the Xbox Series S will end up being the best-selling Xbox in the long term. Maybe not in the short term because a lot of hardcore gamers are jumping on board with the Xbox Series X, but in the long term, he does expect the Xbox Series S to be very well received, and so far, it looks like he is absolutely 100% correct. I, however, do find it interesting that there was so much stock with the Xbox Series S in specific. Now, I've been hearing rumors that this might be the case because it's easier to make the Xbox Series S than some other consoles. So if it is true that the Xbox Series S is easier to manufacture, that is very important in getting a lot of stock to all these stores out there. Once again, though, I just think that this further proves that Microsoft made the correct decision in making both the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S. There was some fans early on that was a little concerned on whether or not that this was the right decision to make, but so far it seems like Microsoft was absolutely correct, as not only has the Xbox Series X been successful so far and still sells out consistently, but now we're also seeing in its first big holiday, the Xbox Series S has had an insane amount of success, outselling every other console on the market. Now, I do want to go ahead and point out that the Xbox Series X likely also sold quite a bit of units on Black Friday as well, so if the Xbox Series S alone outsold everything else in the market, yeah, Xbox must have had a massive holiday with Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S combined. Now, we also have a big reported leak to talk about today being about Bioshock. Now, I know right away that's going to have some fans' ears perked up because for a lot of people, they do believe Bioshock is one of the best first-person shooter franchises of all time. Bioshock is well beloved, especially if you played during the PS360 generation. So I know that there's always going to be some excitement with a new Bioshock title. But now that's kind of the thing because we've known for a little while now that a new Bioshock game is in development. So that's not really a surprise on its own. But allegedly, some new information did leak out online thanks to Oops Leaks over on Twitter. Allegedly, they claim to have leaked out a couple different assets revealing that the new Bioshock name is Bioshock Isolation. It apparently is going to be set in a new-to-franchise isolated dystopian city. It'll be running on Unreal Engine 5. It's developed by Irrational Games veterans and people who worked on Watch Dogs Legions, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, Mafia 3, and Deus Ex. And then, and this is the important one, allegedly it will be announced in Q1 of 2022. So if all of that does end up being true, then Bioshock Isolation will unfortunately miss out on the Game Awards. However, it still sounds like it could get a soonish announcement, which is still exciting on its own. Now, the other thing that they do talk about here is the setting of Bioshock Isolation. According to them, Bioshock Isolation's pitch presentation is that there will be two cities with radically different ideology, one of them located underground right below the other, both sharing a flip side border zone with an unleashed vertical war. Apparently, City 1 will have a free and wealthy society led by a successful entrepreneur, and then the other one apparently will be led by a dictator waging a vertical war. So I actually do find that to be pretty interesting, and I think that's one of the most memorable things about the Bioshock games is the world itself. The first time you enter Rapture, it really sticks with you, just the overall atmosphere in general. So they have to get that nailed down, and I think at the very least, this proposal does actually sound interesting. Now, of course, we'll kind of have to see how all this plays out, and actually, that's one of the most important things to kind of keep in mind when it comes to this leak. For the time being, this is only a rumor, and I was actually a little hesitant about talking about this leak in specific, and the reason I say that is because even though much of the community is kind of going crazy over this leak, and a lot of different websites are reporting on it, and people are taking it very serious, well, this leak is not coming from some well-known, credible source or anything like that. Now, maybe I'm missing something here, and if I am, make sure to let me know in the comments below. But as far as I could see, this one is coming from Oops Leaks over on Twitter, which really only had like 89 followers on Twitter as of this morning. Now, obviously with this leak and everybody reporting on it, they've been kind of shooting up in terms of followers, but it's not like they have some well-known reputation or anything like that. So it is possible that they could have faked these assets, and that's the reason I'm going to go and say, take all of this with a grain of salt. We do know for a fact that a new Bioshock game is in development, but as for all these details today, I guess we'll kind of wait and see. Let me know in the comments below, though, on what you think about the Bioshock franchise, though. Are you excited for the next game? And if it is a game about parallel cities, would you be interested in something like that? Let me know in the comments below. Now, one last thing that we're going to talk about here is a new Sony patent for a PlayStation controller for mobile devices. As you can see here with the patent, they do have the DualShock 4 split into two attached to a mobile device. This is actually a design that we've kind of seen with Xbox as well. Xbox has partnered up with several third parties to make controllers similar to this, as they're making their games available through the cloud. And the thing about those games is that for the most part, they don't play extraordinarily well when playing in touch controls. For hardcore gamers, they do often prefer physical buttons, and that's where these style of controllers come in. I actually have a couple myself, being the Razer Jungle Cat as well as the Razer Kishi, both of which plays phenomenally well. But here with PlayStation, it seems like they're considering something similar, which means that they could be taking that mobile side of gaming very serious as well. Now, this isn't the first time that this has been hinted at, because earlier this year, they did also post a job listing that said that they were going to adapt PlayStation's most popular franchises to mobile. So we've known for a little while now that they've wanted to do something like this, but that's kind of the question. How are they going to enter mobile gaming? Are they going to be making games from the ground up for mobile devices, which I think is very possible? But another thing that I think that they could be doing here is actually a similar approach as to what we're seeing with Xbox. Could they also be planning cloud-based games for mobile devices? They did, of course, partner up with Microsoft Azure before, so maybe this is a plan of theirs to bring PlayStation games to phones through the cloud. This would be a really nice way of expanding PlayStation Now. Another thing that they could be doing here, though, is something like remote play. We've seen them do remote play in the past with PlayStation Vita, and they could do something like that with mobile phones and make it a little bit more accessible with a controller like this. Now, of course, this is all just speculation, but it is starting to seem very clear that PlayStation is taking mobile games serious as of now. Let's go and take a look at the poll of the day, though, where I asked you all, what is your most anticipated game releasing in December? This is something that I do enjoy seeing every month to see which game you all are most excited about. And I mean, I was pretty sure what it was going to be, but yeah, you can definitely see here that most of you all are really excited about Halo Infinite. Halo Infinite received a massive 80% of the votes. Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker took 7%, Solar Ash 2%, and then The Gunk 5%. So yeah, Halo Infinite was the runaway winner here, which isn't really a major surprise or anything like that. Halo is obviously a huge franchise, and it's one of the first really big Xbox Series games releasing this generation. Fans have also been waiting for a new Halo game for a long time. I think it's been like 6 years since Halo 5 or something like that. And then the beta itself is insanely fun. I mean, I can honestly say for myself, Halo is back in a big way. I love the beta, and still, I cannot seem to put this game down. Beyond that, though, there are some pretty good games here releasing in December. It might not necessarily have all of those huge releases that we've seen in recent months, but you do have Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker. I know that there's a lot of fans out there for Final Fantasy XIV, and it just seems like every expansion gets better and better, so I know a lot of fans would be really happy with that game. And then we do have a couple of mid-sized independent games here, being Solar Ash and The Gunk, one being exclusive for the PlayStation 5 and then the other one exclusive for Xbox. Both of those, at the very least, look intriguing, especially considering that they are coming from some of the better independent developers in the industry, so I'm definitely going to watch out for those. Regardless, though, it does seem like December is going to be a pretty good month for the final month of 2021. It's really, overall, in my opinion, it's been a good year for gaming as a whole. Anyways, though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget the bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.